Let me ask you something uncomfortable. If money disappeared from your life tomorrow, your job, your savings, your safety net, would you know how to make it back fast? Because here's the brutal truth. Most people don't fail because they lack money. They fail because they lack the mindset that creates money on demand. I wasn't born rich. I wasn't lucky. I learned how the top 1% think, move, and dominate while everyone else waits, hopes, and complains. Today, I'm going to break down the exact 5 principles that took me from nothing to my first million, principles that schools will never teach you and average people will never understand. Most people never realize that the real battle for wealth is fought in the mind long before it ever shows up in a bank account. The reason so many stay stuck is not because opportunities are rare, but because their thinking is confined to small, safe, familiar numbers. They are trained by schools, families, and society to focus on survival instead of domination. They are taught to ask how to pay bills, not how to build empires. And as long as your thinking stays locked at the level of survival, your results will never rise beyond it. Small thinking sounds practical. It sounds responsible. It sounds mature. But in reality, it is fear disguised as logic. When someone says, "I just want enough to get by," what they are really saying is, "I am afraid to risk failing at something bigger." The mind naturally moves toward what feels safe. And small numbers feel safe because they don't demand much from you. They don't require courage. They don't force you to change who you are. But the problem is this: small goals don't just limit your income. They limit your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who survives, not someone who wins. When you think in small numbers, your brain searches for small solutions. If your goal is to make a little extra money, you'll look for overtime, side hustles that drain your energy, or tiny improvements that barely move the needle. You might work harder, but you won't work smarter. Big thinking works differently. When the target is large, the mind is forced to expand. It starts asking higher level questions. Instead of, "How can I save more?" it asks, "How can I create value at scale?" Instead of, "How do I earn more hours?" it asks, "How do I remove myself from time-based income completely?" Big numbers demand leverage. They demand strategy. They demand that you stop acting like an employee and start thinking like an owner. This is why thinking big is uncomfortable for most people. It exposes their limitations. When you aim high, you immediately see what you lack: skills, confidence, knowledge, discipline. Small goals allow you to hide from those weaknesses. Big goals force you to confront them. There is also a psychological trap that keeps people thinking small comparison with average lives. When everyone around you is chasing modest comfort, big ambition feels strange, even arrogant. Society rewards conformity, not excellence. Dreaming small helps you fit in. Dreaming big isolates you. And most people would rather belong than succeed. They trade potential for acceptance without even realizing it. But wealth has never been created by people who wanted to fit in. It has always been created by those who were willing to be different, misunderstood, and criticized. Thinking in big numbers also changes how you value your time and energy. When your goal is small, wasting time doesn't feel expensive. Scrolling, procrastinating, complaining, none of it seems urgent. But when your target is massive, time becomes sacred. Every hour suddenly matters. You begin to feel the cost of distraction. You stop engaging in activities that don't move you forward. Big goals create urgency, and urgency creates focus. This is why people who aim high often move faster. They feel the pressure of their own vision pushing them forward. Another critical shift that happens when you stop playing small is the way you view money itself. For most people, money is something to be protected, saved, and stretched. For high-level thinkers, money is a tool, a weapon, a multiplier. They are not emotionally attached to it. They are strategically attached to what it can become. Small thinkers are afraid to lose money. Big thinkers are afraid to lose opportunity. That difference alone separates those who stay stuck from those who break through. Big thinking also rewires your tolerance for responsibility. Making a little money requires little responsibility. Making a lot requires massive responsibility for decisions, for outcomes, for people, for systems. This is why many unconsciously sabotage big opportunities. Deep down, they don't want the weight that comes with winning big. They want the rewards without the pressure. But the truth is, pressure is the price of power. If you avoid responsibility, you avoid wealth. When you accept responsibility fully, your capacity to earn expands with it. When I decided to stop thinking small, nothing around me magically changed overnight. The environment was the same. The resources were the same. The difference was internal. I stopped asking permission. I stopped waiting for perfect conditions. I stopped negotiating with fear. I began to think in outcomes instead of obstacles. Every decision was filtered through a new question. Does this move me closer to something significant, or am I just staying busy to feel productive? That question alone eliminates most distractions from your life. Big thinking doesn't mean reckless dreaming. It means calculated ambition. It means choosing arenas where scale exists, where effort can multiply instead of plateau. It means understanding that you will be bad at first, uncomfortable for a long time, and misunderstood along the way. But it also means understanding that the alternative is a lifetime of limitation. Staying small might feel safe, but it is incredibly expensive. It costs you your growth, your confidence, and eventually your self-respect. Once you start thinking in big numbers, you can never fully go back. Small wins stop satisfying you. Comfort stops feeling attractive. You begin to crave progress, expansion, and challenge. Your standards rise, and with them, your results. This is how the first major breakthrough happens, not through luck, not through shortcuts, but through a decision to stop shrinking your vision to match your current reality, and instead expand your reality to match your vision. Most people grow up believing that money is the ultimate goal, but that belief is exactly what keeps them trapped. Money feels powerful because it solves problems, creates comfort, and buys freedom, but what it really represents is stored time. Every dollar you earn is a record of hours' effort, focus, and energy you already spent. Once you understand this, everything changes. You stop chasing money directly and start protecting, multiplying, and respecting your time, because time is the only resource you can never earn back. The average person sells their time 1 hour at a time and calls it a career. They wake up, commute, work, return home exhausted, and repeat the cycle until years disappear. This system is familiar, predictable, and socially accepted, which is why so many people never question it. They think stability equals safety, but in reality, depending entirely on your time is the most fragile position you can be in. If you stop showing up, the income stops. If your energy drops, your earnings drop. Your life becomes a direct reflection of how many hours you can physically trade, and that is a hard ceiling no amount of motivation can break. High-level thinkers see this trap early and look for leverage instead. Leverage is the ability to separate income from direct effort. It is what allows one decision, one skill, or one system to produce results repeatedly without requiring your constant presence. When you focus on leverage, you stop asking how much something pays today and start asking how much it can pay over time. You realize that a single well-built system can outperform years of manual labor. This shift alone puts you on a completely different financial trajectory. Time awareness also changes how you approach learning. Many people delay action because they believe they are not ready yet. They want more knowledge, more confidence, more certainty. But waiting is expensive. Every day spent hesitating is a day that could have been compounding progress. Those who value time understand that learning happens faster through execution than preparation. They move first, adjust later, and let experience accelerate their growth. They accept short-term inefficiency because they know long-term momentum matters more. Once you recognize time as your true currency, distractions become unacceptable. Activities that once felt harmless start to look costly. Endless scrolling, pointless conversations, unplanned days, these are no longer neutral habits. They are withdrawals from your future. This doesn't mean life becomes joyless or rigid, but it does mean you become intentional. You choose rest instead of mindless escape. You choose relationships that energize instead of drain. You choose actions that compound rather than consume. Your calendar starts to reflect your priorities, not your impulses. Another major shift happens in how you view effort. People who trade time for money believe working longer hours is the solution to earning more. People who understand leverage know that effort must eventually be replaced by systems. In the beginning, intense work may be necessary to build skills, create assets, or establish foundations. But the goal is never to work endlessly. The goal is to work strategically so that future results no longer depend on future exhaustion. If your plan requires you to work forever, It is not freedom, it is a different form of slavery. Valuing time also forces you to become selective. You cannot say yes to everything and still move fast. Every commitment has an opportunity cost, even good ones. High performers are not necessarily more talented, but they are ruthless about what they allow into their lives. They understand that saying no is not selfish, it is protective. By guarding their time, they guard their focus, and focus is what turns ordinary actions into extraordinary outcomes. As your respect for time deepens, patience develops alongside urgency. This might sound contradictory, but it is not. Urgency drives daily action, while patience allows long-term vision. You stop expecting instant results and start building processes that improve steadily. You understand that real wealth is not created in weeks, but in years of consistent execution. Because you value time, you are willing to give your strategies enough of it to mature instead of abandoning them at the first sign of discomfort. Time-based thinking also changes how you handle failure. When money is the focus, losses feel devastating. When time is the focus, losses become data. A failed attempt is not wasted if it shortens your learning curve. What truly matters is not avoiding mistakes, but avoiding stagnation. People who succeed faster are not those who fail less, but those who recover quicker and move forward without emotional paralysis. Eventually, this mindset reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who works for income and start seeing yourself as someone who builds engines of value. Your goal shifts from earning to ownership. Ownership of skills, ownership of systems, ownership of decisions. This is when freedom stops being a fantasy and starts becoming a process. Each leveraged action buys back pieces of your future time, until your life is no longer controlled by a schedule, but guided by choice. When time becomes your primary currency, every decision carries more weight. You ask better questions, move with intention, and design your life instead of drifting through it. You stop chasing money blindly and start building a structure where money becomes a natural byproduct of how you use your time. That is the moment you step out of survival mode and into a position of control, where your hours are no longer consumed by necessity, but invested with purpose. Most people like the idea of success, but very few like the discipline required to achieve it. Discipline is not exciting. It doesn't give you the rush that motivation does, and it doesn't feel good in the moment. That is exactly why it works. Motivation is emotional and temporary. It rises when things are going well and disappears the moment life becomes uncomfortable. Discipline, on the other hand, is a system. It operates whether you feel confident or insecure, inspired or exhausted. It is the invisible structure that holds progress together when emotions collapse. The biggest lie people believe is that successful individuals are always motivated. In reality, they are often tired, bored, and under pressure. The difference is not how they feel, but how they act. They understand that feelings are unreliable, and they refuse to let emotions dictate behavior. Waiting to feel like it is a luxury reserved for people who are comfortable staying average. Those who want more learn to move regardless of mood. They act because action is required, not because it feels good. Discipline begins with self-control, and self-control starts with honesty. You must be honest about your weaknesses, your habits, and your excuses. Most people protect their ego by justifying why they didn't do what they said they would do. Discipline removes those justifications. It forces you to confront the gap between who you are and who you claim you want to become. That confrontation is uncomfortable, but it is also empowering. The moment you stop lying to yourself, you regain control. Another reason discipline is so powerful is that it creates consistency, and consistency is what compounds. A single intense burst of effort means very little if it is followed by weeks of inaction. Small actions repeated daily outperform massive efforts done occasionally. Discipline turns progress into a habit rather than an event. It removes the need for constant decision making because your standards are already set. You don't wake up wondering whether you should work. You already know you will. This reduces mental friction and preserves energy for what actually matters. Discipline also builds confidence in a way motivation never can. Motivation makes promises, discipline keeps them. Every time you follow through on a commitment, even a small one, you send a signal to yourself that you are reliable. Over time, that self-trust compounds. You begin to believe in your ability to execute, and that belief becomes a competitive advantage. Many people fail not because they lack skill, but because they lack confidence in their own consistency. Discipline fixes that from the inside out. There is also a deeper level to discipline that most people overlook: emotional regulation. Discipline is not just about waking up early or working longer hours. It is about controlling reactions. It is the ability to stay calm under pressure, to think clearly when things go wrong, and to avoid impulsive decisions that feel good short term but damage you long term. Wealth, success, and leadership all demand this level of control. Without it, gains are easily lost and momentum is constantly broken. Discipline becomes especially important when progress is slow. Early stages of growth are often boring and unrewarding. Results lag behind effort and doubt creeps in. This is where most people quit, not because they failed, but because they didn't see immediate proof that their actions were working. Disciplined individuals understand that delayed results are normal. They stay the course, trusting the process instead of chasing validation. This ability to endure boredom and uncertainty is rare, and rarity is always valuable. Another powerful effect of discipline is that it simplifies life. When standards are clear, choices become easier. You no longer negotiate with yourself about whether to train, study, or execute. You do it because it aligns with who you are becoming. This reduces internal conflict, which is one of the biggest drains on energy. Indecision exhausts people far more than hard work. Discipline eliminates that indecision by replacing it with structure. Over time, discipline reshapes identity. At first, it feels forced, like you are pushing against your nature. But eventually, it becomes who you are. You stop seeing discipline as something you do and start seeing it as something you embody. This shift is critical because behavior that aligns with identity is easier to sustain. You no longer say, "I'm trying to be disciplined." You say, "I am disciplined." That internal shift changes everything. Discipline also creates freedom, even though it appears restrictive at first. People often resist discipline because they associate it with loss of enjoyment or flexibility. In reality, undisciplined lives are the most restrictive of all. They are controlled by impulses, external pressures, and constant damage control. Discipline removes chaos. It creates predictability, stability, and progress. With that foundation in place, true freedom becomes possible, not the freedom to do nothing, but the freedom to choose what matters. As discipline strengthens, your tolerance for discomfort increases. Tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Challenges that once triggered avoidance become opportunities to grow. This is not because the task changed, but because you change. You become mentally tougher, more resilient, and less reactive. This toughness is not aggression, it is endurance. It allows you to keep moving forward while others burn out, quit, or self-sabotage. Ultimately, discipline is not about punishment or deprivation. It is about respect for your goals, your time, and your future self. Every disciplined action is a vote for the person you want to become. Over months and years, those votes accumulate, and the results become undeniable. While motivation fades and circumstances shift, discipline remains. It is the one advantage that cannot be taken from you, because it is built entirely from choices you make when no one is watching. Most people underestimate how much their environment controls their destiny. They like to believe they are independent thinkers, driven purely by willpower and ambition, but the truth is far less flattering. Human beings are highly adaptive creatures. We absorb behaviors, beliefs, standards, and limits from whatever surrounds us. Your environment silently programs you every single day, shaping what you see as normal, possible, and acceptable. If you do not consciously design that environment, it will design you, and it will almost always pull you toward average. Environment is not just a physical place. It is the people you interact with, the conversations you engage in, the content you consume, and the expectations placed on you. If everyone around you complains about money, fears risk, and celebrates comfort, that mindset slowly becomes yours, even if you think you're resisting it. You start lowering your standards without realizing it. You stop pushing as hard. You begin to justify mediocrity because it feels socially safe. This is how ambition dies quietly, not through failure, but through familiarity. One of the most dangerous aspects of a weak environment is normalization. When underperformance becomes common, excellence starts to feel extreme. When laziness is everywhere, discipline looks obsessive. When fear is shared, courage feels reckless. The mind naturally wants to belong, and belonging often requires shrinking. This is why so many capable people never reach their potential. They are surrounded by influences that subtly punish growth and reward staying the same. Changing your environment is uncomfortable because it often means changing relationships. Not everyone will support your growth, especially if it highlights their own stagnation. Some people will mock your ambition. Others will discourage you for your own good. Many will try to pull you back to the version of yourself they are comfortable with. This is not always malicious. Sometimes it is subconscious self-protection. Your growth threatens their excuses. Your discipline exposes their lack of it. So they attempt to keep you where you were, not where you could be. High-level performers understand this dynamic early. They do not waste energy trying to convince everyone of their vision. Instead, they relocate physically, mentally, or digitally into environments that demand more from them. They place themselves around people who talk differently, think bigger, and operate at a higher standard. In those environments, progress is expected, not applauded. Discipline is normal. Excuses are unacceptable. This kind of exposure rewires your baseline. What once felt intimidating becomes standard operating procedure. Your environment also dictates how you respond to failure. In weak environments, failure is mocked or feared. People avoid risks because failure carries social punishment. In strong environments, failure is treated as feedback. It is analyzed, adjusted for, and used as fuel. When you are surrounded by people who see setbacks as part of the process, you become more resilient. You stop taking mistakes personally and start using them strategically. This shift alone accelerates growth dramatically. Another overlooked aspect of environment is information intake. What you consume daily becomes your internal dialogue. News, entertainment, social media, and conversations all shape your perception of reality. If you constantly consume negativity, drama, and low-level thinking, your mind becomes noisy and unfocused. Clarity disappears. Vision shrinks. On the other hand, when you feed your mind with ideas rooted in growth, execution, and excellence, your thinking sharpens. You begin to see opportunities where others see obstacles. Environment also affects your standards for effort. If the people around you stop when things get hard, you will feel pressure to stop as well. If they push through resistance, that behavior becomes contagious. Humans mirror each other far more than they like to admit. This is why willpower alone is unreliable. Willpower fights the environment. Smart people redesign it. They reduce friction for good habits and increase friction for bad ones. They make discipline easier by making distraction harder. Even physical spaces matter. A cluttered, chaotic environment creates mental clutter. A structured, intentional space encourages focus and execution. This is not about luxury or aesthetics. It is about alignment. When your surroundings reflect order, your actions follow. When they reflect neglect, your standards erode. Small details compound. How you organize your space often mirrors how you organize your life. As your environment improves, something subtle but powerful happens. Your identity begins to shift. You start behaving differently not because you're forcing yourself, but because the new behavior feels natural in that setting. You rise to the expectations around you. This is why people often experience rapid growth after changing environments. It's not that they suddenly became smarter or more capable. It's that the ceiling was raised. They were finally placed in a context that allowed their potential to surface. Outgrowing environments is a sign of progress, but many people misinterpret it as discomfort or restlessness. They feel uneasy, dissatisfied, or disconnected, and instead of recognizing it as a signal to evolve, they suppress it. They stay where they are known, accepted, and predictable. Growth always requires a period of isolation, uncertainty, and reinvention. The willingness to endure that phase separates those who transform their lives from those who repeat the same year forever. Ultimately, your environment is either a force multiplier or a force limiter. It will either amplify your discipline, ambition, and focus, or slowly drain them. You cannot build an extraordinary life in an ordinary environment and expect sheer effort to compensate. Effort matters, but alignment matters more. When your surroundings reinforce the person you are trying to become, progress stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like momentum. Most people are taught to avoid risk at all costs. From an early age, they are conditioned to believe that safety is the highest virtue and that uncertainty should be eliminated whenever possible. This belief system creates a life that looks stable on the surface, but is fragile underneath. Playing it safe does not protect you from loss. It only protects you from growth. When you avoid risk entirely, you also avoid the opportunities that could fundamentally change your life. Calculated risk is not recklessness. It is not blind gambling or impulsive decision-making. It is the willingness to step into uncertainty with awareness, preparation, and intent. The key difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck is not intelligence or luck, but their relationship with uncertainty. People who stay broke fear making the wrong move. People who win understand that not moving at all is the worst decision of all. Every meaningful level of success requires stepping into territory where outcomes are not guaranteed. If a path is completely safe, predictable, and approved by everyone, it is almost always overcrowded and low reward. High returns exist where uncertainty exists. That uncertainty scares most people away, which is exactly why opportunity lives there. Those who understand this don't wait for certainty, they build confidence through action. Fear plays a massive role in keeping people stagnant. Fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, fear of losing money, fear of judgment. These fears feel logical, but they are often exaggerated by the mind. What people rarely calculate is the cost of inaction. Years spent in the same position, earning the same income, repeating the same routines, slowly draining ambition. This silent cost is far greater than most short-term losses, yet it is rarely acknowledged because it doesn't show up immediately. Calculated risk taking begins with accepting that mistakes are inevitable. You will misjudge situations. You will lose money. You will make decisions that don't work out. This is not a sign of incompetence. It is the tuition required for experience. Experience is the most valuable asset you can acquire because it sharpens judgment. Those who avoid risk never develop this skill. They remain dependent on advice, permission, and validation because they never build trust in their own decision-making. Another reason people avoid risk is the desire to look smart. Taking a risk and failing feels like public humiliation to the ego. Staying safe allows people to preserve an image of intelligence and responsibility. But image does not produce results. Growth demands humility, the humility to be bad at something before becoming good, the humility to accept losses without quitting, and the humility to learn instead of defend your pride. Risk also forces clarity. When something is on the line, you pay attention. You stop drifting. You start thinking critically. Comfort dulls awareness, but risk sharpens it. This is why people often experience rapid growth after taking bold action. Their senses wake up. They become more resourceful, more focused, and more adaptive. Pressure, when chosen intentionally, becomes a powerful catalyst for evolution. Calculated risks are taken with asymmetric thinking. You look for situations where the downside is limited, but the upside is significant. This might mean investing time instead of money, testing ideas on a small scale, or building skills that increase your value regardless of outcome. The goal is not to eliminate risk, but to manage it intelligently. People who succeed are not reckless, they are strategic. They understand probabilities, timing, and leverage. Comfort is one of the most dangerous forces in life because it feels like success. When basic needs are met and life is predictable, urgency disappears. Dreams get postponed. Ambition fades. Comfort convinces you that tomorrow will always be available. It rarely is. Staying comfortable for too long erodes hunger, and hunger is what drives breakthroughs. The first million is almost never made in comfort. It is made in periods of discomfort where action outweighs fear. Risk also builds internal strength. Every time you take responsibility for an uncertain outcome, you strengthen your sense of agency. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as a participant in your own destiny. Even when outcomes are unfavorable, the act of choosing builds confidence. You learn that you can survive setbacks, adapt, and continue forward. This realization alone frees you from paralysis. Those who refuse to take risks often justify their position by calling themselves realistic. In reality, they are choosing familiarity over possibility. Realism without ambition leads to stagnation. Progress has always been driven by individuals willing to challenge what is considered safe or normal. If everyone waited for guarantees, innovation would stop, growth would freeze, and nothing new would ever be created. Taking calculated risk also reshapes your relationship with failure. Failure stops being an endpoint and becomes a data point. You analyze what went wrong, adjust your approach, and move again. This cycle builds momentum. Momentum is far more valuable than perfection. While others wait for the perfect plan, you are already learning, refining, and improving in real time. Eventually, a shift happens. You stop fearing risk and start fearing stagnation. The idea of staying in the same place becomes more uncomfortable than the idea of trying something new. This is a critical transformation. It marks the moment when growth becomes inevitable because your default behavior changes. You no longer need external motivation to move forward. The cost of standing still feels too high. Calculated risk taking is not about chasing thrills or proving bravery. It is about respecting your potential enough to give it a chance. Playing it safe may protect you from short-term discomfort, but it will quietly rob you of long-term fulfillment. Those who understand this don't wait for permission, certainty, or perfect timing. They act, learn, adjust, and act again. That willingness to move despite uncertainty is what separates those who talk about freedom from those who actually build it. The truth is, financial freedom is never an accident, and it is never reserved for a lucky few. It is built deliberately through choices most people are unwilling to make and standards most people refuse to hold. Thinking big, valuing time, mastering discipline, designing your environment, and embracing calculated risk are not separate ideas. They are parts of the same philosophy. When these principles come together, they change how you see yourself and how you move through the world. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally, understanding that your future is not something you wait for, but something you construct every single day. The moment you decide to stop playing small, your life demands more from you. Bigger thinking exposes your weaknesses, tests your patience, and challenges your comfort, but it also unlocks capabilities you never knew you had. When you respect time as your true currency, you stop wasting your life on distractions and begin investing it into systems, skills, and actions that compound. Discipline becomes your anchor, keeping you moving forward when motivation fades, while your environment either lifts you higher or drags you back, depending on whether you chose it or allowed it. Risk, when taken with awareness and courage, becomes the gateway to growth. Nothing meaningful is built without stepping into uncertainty. Every level of freedom requires a higher tolerance for discomfort, responsibility, and temporary failure. Those who avoid risk do not avoid loss, they simply delay it in the form of regret. Those who take calculated risks gain something invaluable even when they fail, experience confidence and clarity. Over time, these qualities stack up and turn into momentum, and momentum is what separates dreamers from builders. The life lesson is simple but unforgiving. Comfort is the enemy of potential. If you choose comfort, you choose limits. If you choose growth, you choose challenge, and with it, the possibility of extraordinary outcomes. Your life will not rise to your intentions. It will fall to your standards. Raise those standards. Demand more from your thoughts, your time, your habits, your circle, and your courage. When you do, success stops being a distant dream and becomes the natural result of how you live. Thank you for watching till the very end. If this message gave you clarity, strength, or a new way of thinking, don't let it stop here. Take action on what you've learned, because knowledge without execution changes nothing. If this video added value to your life, like it to support the channel, subscribe so you don't miss future content, and turn on notifications to stay ahead while others fall behind. Share this video with someone who needs a mindset shift, someone who's ready to level up but hasn't heard the truth yet. Drop a comment below with the one lesson that hit you the hardest, and let me know what topic you want to see next. Your feedback helps shape what comes next, and your engagement keeps this movement growing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing growth over comfort. And remember, your future is built by what you do after this video ends. Stay focused, stay disciplined, and I'll see you in the next one.